Okay, this is the start of our trig lesson. You're going to need a calculator today. I suggest having your calculator out while we do the lesson. That way you can check your answers to see if you're getting the same thing I am getting. So when you are doing trig, you need to make sure that your calculator is first in degree mode. So the easiest way to check is you can always just enter tangent of 45 and then hit enter, and it should equal 1. So that's how you know you're in degree mode. Or your calculator sometimes will tell you it's in degree mode if you look at your screen. There's a little D right here for degree, or sometimes down here at the bottom it will say DEG. But if you're like, I don't know, you can always type tangent 45, and if you get 1 back, then you know you are in degree mode. Um, as we are doing sine, cosine, tangent, you need to locate your sine, cosine, tangent buttons on your calculator. So these are the two most common calculators in our school. Here are the buttons. Okay, sine, cosine, tangent. When you are entering them in, you're gonna hit that button and then type whatever you need. So this picture kind of tells you we're doing the sine, and you can type whatever else. Um, and then sometimes if you don't have the sine, cosine, tangent right available on your screen as a button, sometimes you'll have to look for a trig button. So there's a few calculators in the room. You might have to hit trig first. And I think usually on those calculators, it's like in this area. I was trying to find a picture of one of them and I couldn't. So sorry. If you need help, you can try asking me. I can help you or someone around you if you're like, I don't know where this is. Ask for help. So, section 7.3a, trig ratios and finding missing sides. So our learning goals, I can find a trig ratio for acute angles in a right triangle. I can calculate sine, cosine, tangent ratios for acute angles in right triangles. And I can use sine, cosine, and tangent to solve for missing measures in a right triangle. So let's do just a quick prior knowledge check. So in number 1, we want to solve for x. This involves first solving that top triangle to find the missing side. So in this top triangle, here's our 30 degrees. So that makes this side m. Across from 6 is your m square root 3. Across from your right angle is 2m. So here we know m square root 3 is equal to 6. So then solve for m. And then we have to rationalize. So we get 6 square roots of 3 over 3, and then we need to reduce. So m is 2 square roots of 3, but this middle side is 2m. So we have to multiply that by 2. So we get 4 square roots of 3. So this new side is 4 square roots of 3. Now in this other triangle, this lower half, it's a 45, 45, 90, which means these two sides are congruent. So this is also 4 square roots of 3. And down here, remember, we have to double your side. So it's going to be 2 times 4. Oops, sorry, not double. Multiply it by square root 2. So 4 square roots of 3 times square root 2. So we have 4 square roots of 6 is our x. Okay, new content. So we have trig ratios. So for a trig ratio, all we are doing is writing out the ratio or the fraction of the sides. So for each of these, we have to be really careful about what is our reference angle. So in these first ones, it says sine A, cosine A, tangent A. That makes A your reference angle. Now, your reference angle tells you which angle to reference. So if A is our reference angle, that makes this segment that's across from it your opposite, and the side across from your right angle is your hypotenuse. And this last side, the one that's like touching your angle, we call that your adjacent. This will change with different reference angles. So for sine of A, your ratio is going to be your opposite over your hypotenuse. So it's going to be A over C. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's going to be B over C. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be A over B. But now if we look at the same triangle, but B is your reference angle, then that changes things. That now makes B your opposite. C is still hypotenuse, but now A is your adjacent. So the sine of B is going to be B over C. The cosine of B is A over C. And the tangent of B is B over A. So it is different with different reference angles. Now remember, we have this little shortcut. Some of you have even pointed it out, is on the front of your notes. The shortcut is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. It helps so you remember this pattern. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. OH, OH, OH. See how it matches? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Yeah, and it matches A, H, A, H. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So again, O, A, O, A. It all kind of matches together. So on your test, you might want to write this at the top, or at the top of your homework page, you might want to write this at the top, so it's quick and easy to reference. So now, in number one, we're going to give each trig ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So that means you're going to be reducing your fractions. So we need to pay attention to our reference angle. So here, do you see how they're all A's? That makes A your reference angle. So across from your reference angle, that will sometimes help to draw the line, is your opposite. Across from your right angle is your hypotenuse, always. And that makes this last side your adjacent. And your adjacent is always the side, that's not your hypotenuse, that's touching your angle. So the sine of A is 5 over 13 because it's opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of A is 12 over 13 because it's adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent of A is 5 over 12 because it's opposite side over adjacent side. And those are your fractions. Number two, we first need to find this missing side. We don't know what WX is, so let's find it. Now remember, if you have a right triangle with two known sides and one missing side, you can use Pythagorean theorem to find it. So WX squared is equal to 9 squared plus 12 squared. So we get 81 plus 144, which is 225. Take the square root. So WX is 15, so that comes out really nice. Now, number 2, our reference angle is W. So W is our reference angle. That makes 12 your opposite. WY is your adjacent. And across from your right angle is always your hypotenuse. So it doesn't matter which reference angle you have, either W or X, your hypotenuse will always stay the same. So W, sine of W is going to be 12 over 15. But we need to reduce that to 4/5. Cosine of W is 9 over 15. But reduce that, we get 3/5. Tangent of W is opposite over adjacent, so 12 over 9, which is 4/3. Okay, flip the page. So, finding missing sides with trig ratios, make sure your calculator, again, is in degree mode, like I pointed out at the top of our notes. So now we're going to be using trig to solve for x. So at the top of my page, I'm just going to rewrite SOHCAHTOA. In number 3, this 28 degrees, that is our reference angle, which makes this side x your opposite, and across from your right angle is your hypotenuse. Now we have OH, that matches sine. So how we write it is now we say sine of 28, because that's our angle. So on these last questions, we just had an A or W or any letter. Now we actually know what the angle is, so we have to put that measure in. So we say sine 28 equals x, because that's our opposite, over 19, which is our hypotenuse. So now we need to solve for x. To solve for x, we have to get rid of this fraction. So if we divide by 19, we need to do the opposite. We're going to multiply both sides by 19. So when we do that, we end up getting rid of our fraction. So we get 19 sine of 28 is equal to x. Now, when you type this in your calculator, you're going to do it exactly like this. So in your calculator, you're going to do 19 times sine, and it will come up with its own parenthesis. Then you're going to put 28, then you're going to close your parenthesis. Just get in the habit of closing it. Sometimes if you forget to close it, it will still calculate the same, but it's just in a good habit because sometimes we will be dividing or having sign in a different spot. So just get in that habit of closing your parenthesis. Now, when you enter it in, you're going to type it in all at one time, hit enter. You should get 8.9. If you did not get 8.9, you should stop right now and ask someone near you or ask a teacher to help you. Okay, number 4. So we have a new reference angle, 21. Across from your reference angle is opposite. Across from your right angle is hypotenuse. Across your other side that's touching your angle is your adjacent. So in this example, we actually don't have any need for our opposite. There's no sign, there's no measure there or variable. So we actually don't even need that at all. So if we look up at our reference, we have adjacent and hypotenuse. Adjacent, hypotenuse, that goes with cosine. So cosine of 21 is equal to our adjacent over hypotenuse, so x over 26, Now we have to solve for x. So again, we want to get rid of this fraction. So multiply both sides by 26. When you multiply, you end up canceling out those 26's. So we get x equals 26 cosine of 21. Type that in your calculator exactly the way it's written. 26 times cosine 21. So when you enter that in, you get 24.3. Now, if you're not getting the right answers, again, make sure your calculator says degree mode. Most of your guys' calculators come standard in degree mode, but sometimes it can get hit on accident in your backpack, whatever. So just make sure it's in correctly. Number 5. So here's our reference angle. The side across from your reference angle is your opposite. And the side across from your right angle is hypotenuse. And your other side touching your angle, that's not hypotenuse, is your adjacent. Now in this picture, there's nothing on your hypotenuse, so we can ignore that. Now let's look back up at the top. We have opposite adjacent. That matches with TOA, so that means we're going to be using tangent. Tangent of 55 equals opposite x over adjacent 8. Now solve for x. Multiply on the bottom by the number on the bottom of your fraction, so multiply both sides by 8. Our 8 dividing and 8 multiply cancel each other out, so we get x is equal to 8 tangent of 55. You can leave the parentheses in there, or you can drop them. Most calculators know you're going to be multiplying. It doesn't matter. Or you can have all the parentheses in there, so we know 55 is the degree for our tangent, and 8's on the outside multiplying. Now, if we enter that in, we get 11.4. Some calculators, I think there are a few of you who have the one that's a little bit different than everyone else. You sometimes have to do 55, then hit tangent, and then hit multiply by 8. So that's just some of your calculators you're going to have to do like it backwards. If you have one of those calculators, sometimes it helps just to switch it in and borrow one of mine for the day, for the hour. And number 6, here's our reference angle. Across from your reference angle is your opposite. Across from your right angle is your hypotenuse. And then our last side's our adjacent side, but there's nothing on there, so you don't even need to label it if there's no measurement there. So opposite and hypotenuse, that is sine. So sine of 33 is equal to 15 over x. Now, if this happens where your x is on the bottom of your fraction, what you can do is put it over 1 and cross multiply. Cross, cross. So we get x sine 33 is equal to 15. Now, sine of 33, that's just like any regular old number. So we can just divide that out. Sine 33. Your sine 33's cancel. So you get x is equal to 15 divided by sine 33. Now in your calculator, you're going to write 15 divided by sine parenthesis 33 end parenthesis. You can type it all at one time just like that and then hit enter. Some of you guys, if you have the fraction button, you can just enter this in using your fraction button. That works too. So you should get 27.5 for your x value. Okay. Number 7, we have a word problem. So when you have word problems, we need to make sure we are drawing pictures every time we have word problems. So Jake leaned a 12-foot ladder against his house. If the angle formed by the ladder and the ground is 68 degrees, how far from the base of the house did he place the ladder? So when you're doing this, we um, need to make sure we are looking for all the correct information. So first thing you should do when you have a word problem is read all the way through. And we just did. Next, you're going to um, look for any key information. So we have a 12-foot ladder, angle formed by the ladder and the ground is 68 degrees. And then lastly, we have how far from the base of the house did he place the ladder? So that is our question. So we can box that. So box your question, circle your key information. Now using this, we can draw a picture. So you're going to draw a right triangle, 12-foot ladder against the house. So here is your ladder. Your ladder is what's leaning against the house. That's 12 feet. Your house is right here. So sometimes it helps if you label. So here's my house, here's my ladder, here's the ground. The angle formed by the ladder and the ground is 68 degrees. That means down here is my 68 degrees. Your house and the ground will make a right angle. And then your question, your box question says, how far from the base of the house did you place the ladder? So our X is from base of our house to where the ladder is on the ground. So that makes this bottom of our triangle our X. Now we can solve. So here's my reference angle. That makes X my adjacent. 12 is my hypotenuse. And my house is my opposite, but we don't need your opposite in this question. So we have adjacent hypotenuse. Adjacent hypotenuse goes with cosine. So the cosine of 68 is equal to x over 12, and then solve for x. So first we need to get rid of that fraction, so multiply by 12 on both sides. Cancel out your fraction. So x is 12 cosine of 68. Now enter that in your calculator. 12 cosine 68. We get x is 4.5. So the distance between the base of the house right here to how far the ladder is right here, that measurement is 4.5 feet. So always make sure you have your unit. Okay, so on word problems, always draw a picture. And then once you have your picture set up, you can solve just like normal.